Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your time again this lovely Sunday afternoon. So we've been through financing your property, the legal side of buying a property, interacting with estate agents, looking at how to transfer your money. So now we've got to the point where you have bought and you're now the proud owner of a property in Portugal. So we're going to look at issues surrounding ownership and making the most of your property, whether that's letting it out. And certainly we're going to look at the responsibilities, the financial responsibilities associated with owning a property. If you've been with us earlier, you will recognize two panelists who have been on previous sessions, Angela and Paula. Angela from Ideal Homes and Paula Mireles, our resident lawyer for today's proceedings. So welcome back, both of you. Paula, you took us through the purchase process, which you broke down into three main parts. The final part of that was the completion, when we opened the bubbly and all celebrated. So what do you then say to somebody who owns a property about their kind of fiscal responsibilities associated with that property? What does somebody then need to do?
Andy, as I said, so that day is the fantastic day and the process ends there for the client, but not for us. We still need to carry out some steps, and those steps are precisely registering at the tax department, doing the connections of water, electricity, gas, internet. We do all those things with the clients. And of course, when we register the client at the tax department, then the natural consequence is for the client to receive the council rates. So when you buy something, we register with the fiscal department, and the year after you will receive your council rates. Our office receives all the bills of our clients, and we pay them on behalf of the clients with no extra costs.
Are you continue to do that as a post-sale service, paying fees on behalf and utilities as well?
Yes, we do that for the clients, and we do not charge anything for that.
Okay, well that's good to hear. And Angela, something on council taxes then, they're pretty high in the UK. What could somebody expect to pay on a property in Portugal? I presume it's similar in that it's stepped depending on the size and value of the property?
In general, it's 0.3% of the value of the property. But that's the fiscal value, so it's what it is down on paper, which can be less than what you actually purchased the property for. And it does depend on area to area, so there'll be more expensive areas than others. But it's generally, if you work it out at 0.3% of the price you paid, you'll not be over, which is quite a low amount. I think it'll be it's about 300 on a villa a year, that kind of thing. It's not an expensive like it is in the UK.
So it's 300 euros for the year for a villa, something like that?
Yeah, it all depends, like I say, it depends on the fiscal value of the property. So
okay.
Yeah.
If you have questions for Paula and Angela, then just click on the Q&A icon and ping them to me, and I will put them to our panel. That fiscal value then, Paula, who establishes that, and why might that be different from what a property was bought or sold for?
I think it's similar than in the UK. So the rates are established based on, as Angela said, and very well, on the area of where the property is located, on the square meters, on the elements of comfort of the property. So when we do the transaction of the property, and when we go to the tax office to inform that this person has bought the property, normally this property will be subject to a revaluation, and there is a formula, a tax formula, which will determine the rateable value of that property in that year, which normally is much lower than the market prices. So who establishes that is the tax department.
Okay. And what sort of post-purchase services do you offer, Angela, at Ideal Home? So I find a villa with you, I buy it, and then I think about renting it out. Do you get involved in that sort of activity?
Yes, we have a full rental service. So a part of the company is rentals. So we do everything from whether you want to just visit the property yourself for holidays and you want it cleaning and everything like that, up to a full rental management company where we do from, you may never want to see your property, you just want to rent it out constantly and just receive an income. So we do provide an absolute full service in that aspect, even meeting and greeting every one of your clients. We look after your clients just as well as we look after our clients.
So I guess, yeah, there's quite a lot of work involved in that. If you're coordinating with getting the place cleaned and a key holding service and welcoming new guests to a property, without going into detail on fees, what can somebody expect to pay you in percentage terms on their rental for having it fully managed like that?
Well, we charge around €1,000 a year, depending on, obviously, if it's a massive property, then we'll charge a little more. But it's around €1,000, and then you receive 90% of your income from the property. And then obviously you need to pay for cleaners, laundry and things like that. But you can make quite a lot of money. I mean, we have a guy that bought from us a while ago, and he's making 54,000 a year on his property. It's in a good location, it's a beautiful property, but it's nothing exceptional. So we do a lot of marketing, and the clients obviously help with the marketing themselves. And so the thing is, over here, the weeks, you can fill the weeks nearly all year, depending on where you are. So it does bring in a great income.
And do you find that a lot of your buyers are looking to offset running costs or even make money in that example by renting it out, or do a lot of people buy and don't want anybody else near their lovely Portuguese property? How does that break down?
We have quite a mixture. At the moment, we're getting a lot of people that are wanting to invest and have an investment property. I think that's due to the circumstances at the moment. People who aren't looking to live in the property are more likely to buy through a virtual tour or over the telephone. And so we're having a lot of that. But I suppose, like, some people will only want themselves to go in the property. They won't want to share it with anybody. It's their holiday home. But still, we can still offer a service, like I say, for that. So if you're coming away to visit your property, you don't want to get there and have to clean it and have to look if anything needs doing or whatever. You want to come over and you still want to have an holiday yourself. So we have a service where we just look after it on them circumstances. But we also then have people that buy a property and they want it to just pay for itself. So just by renting it out June, July, August, those kind of months, they can cover all the costs of the property. And then, like I said, there's people that just don't even really want to see the property. They just want it as an investment. And then we do that whole service as well. So it's quite a variety, really, of different people.
And Paola, if I'm renting out a property, then I'm going to need to report that income somewhere. And I guess that depends on whether I've bought a holiday home and I still live in the UK, or whether I've actually relocated and I have a second Portuguese property. You do need to report the rental income somewhere, don't you?
Correct. And for that, Andy, I advise everyone to have a good accountant. So they will present your income, your annual tax income. Also, in each rental, if it's a short-term rentals, it's like it functions like a hotel. Each person that you have, you need to report to Foreign Affairs Services as well as to the tax authorities. So I think it's a good thing to have an accountant that can deal for you with all that bureaucracy, let's say so.
And I know in Spain, if you own a property in Spain, do you have to file a return irrespective of whether you rent your property out or not? Is that the same, Paola, in Portugal, or do I need to do anything like that?
Yes, if you registered, for you to have a rental license, you need to be registered with the fiscal authorities. So if you registered, you need to present an annual tax return. If you rented, well done. If you didn't, it will be zero. You will pay nothing, but you're still obliged to present that annual tax return.
And if I don't have a rental license, if I just own a property and don't rent it out, is there any obligation to do any kind of annual filing of a return or anything?
No, of course not. If you buy for yourself as your main home and you do not rent, the only tax that you're going to face is the rates, the annual rates, which in Portugal, they are paid in arrears. So in 2020, we are paying 2019. In 2021, we will be paying this year. So it's always in arrears.
Okay. And Angela, Nigel Beaumont asks, we did cover this, but if you just explain again what sort of charge would be for looking after my property, for checking it regularly, getting it ready for visits. So it was a sign-up fee and then it's a percentage. Just explain that again for us.
Yeah, and again, it depends how long, if he wants it to be a full rental service, that's like we fully rent it out all year, it would be around 1,000 a year, and he will get 90% of the income that he gets from the clients. We do other services. We do like an after-sale service where we look after the property if they're not renting it out, but just little things like having a toilet flushed does make a difference. Somebody going in and making sure it's fresh, opening windows up, and we do that as a service as well. So there's all different ways that we can help out, and we have different packages for that.
Okay. And what would you say if I was looking to buy a property and rent it out and maximize that rental income? I guess there are some fairly obvious key drivers that make that an attractive property. Just run through those for us, Angela.
Yeah, most people when they come out on holiday, for instance, want to be near the beach. They want to be near a town. A two-bedroom apartment always rents well. All a one-bedroom and a three-bedroom would, but the two-bedroom is the one that most people purchase for a rental. But yeah, it's getting the right location. At the moment, I mean, Lagos, if you're wanting to rent it out all year round, Lagos is more likely for you to be able to do that. If you buy in the east, you'll still get good returns through the summer, but you won't rent it out as many weeks. But yet you'll pay less for the property initially. So there's all different ways of doing it, and depending on each person, and that's what we do. We get to know each individual's circumstances, what they're wanting out of it, what they like to do and things like that, and then we direct them to the right property, the right area that will suit that, and then we give them the figures and everything like that in the individual properties that they're interested in.
We've got a question in for you, Angela, from Samuel Matau, asks about whether they'd need a Portuguese bank account for you to pay them the rental income. Do you pay that to holiday home owners in the UK directly? Do they need a Portuguese bank account, or does it not really matter?
No, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's always best to get a Portuguese bank account. Usually you'll have to get one for buying a property. But as for rentals, no, we can pay into the English account.
And is that right, Paula? Am I going to, as a Portuguese property owner, am I going to need, I guess I am, to pay utilities, aren't I? I'm going to need a Portuguese bank account, or not necessarily?
I recommend clients to have their bank accounts, especially to do the direct debits, but not necessarily as on our particular case. As I said before, we can pay bills on behalf of our clients. But I think it's always handy to have a Portuguese bank account in here if you have a property. Anyway, if people are looking to come and live in Portugal, it will be necessary to have that bank account.
It's quite simple, really, isn't it, to open a bank account? You don't need to have funds or anything like that particularly. It's quite an easy process.
And I have a question here. It's not quite on topic, but it's been asked a couple of times from G. McCormack, Paula. I'm an Irish passport holder, but I live in Northern Ireland. What nationality do I buy my property in Portugal under? I'm assuming from that Mr. McCormack or Mrs. McCormack also has a UK passport. I mean, I guess that's just a personal choice, is it? Or
of course, it's no difference for us. You can buy in either passports. It will do, no problem.
Okay.
And there's won't add any costs to the purchase.
Okay. And would a mortgage company bother at all whether you plan to rent your property out or not, Paula? I mean, you're not going to be able to use the rental income, I guess, as a contributory value of income towards the payments. You wouldn't be able to use that. You'd have to proof of income elsewhere. But would they mind whether you rent it out or not? Is there any restriction?
Andy, I would advise the person to inform the bank that the intention it will be to rent, to avoid any future complications. It's possible to do the mortgage for rentals or for permanent habitation. So fees of the mortgage will have a variation, but then it's safe. I would recommend people to inform upfront the bank, report the fact that it's an investment property and they are looking to rent.
And presumably you'd need the appropriate insurance product in place as well to cover yourself if you're renting out your property?
Yes, you need to. I always advise clients to have civil liability insurance. You will need a license to rent. So there are several requirements that you have to fulfill. I think it's fundamental to have the property insurance, but also to cover any accident that could happen on the property while it's rented.
And who typically would help an owner with that sort of thing, with pointing them? Do you do that sort of stuff as well, Angela? You'd point them in the direction of an insurance company, and I guess you too, Paula, both of you offer that sort of thing?
Yeah,
yes,
anything that they need. There's always someone on, that we can recommend and work with. Okay.
And similarly, Angela, John Franklin asks about pool and garden maintenance. I guess John is assuming on a standalone villa rather than a community. I mean, what's the cost of pool and garden maintenance? That's going to depend on the size and how often. But can you give John some sort of insight as to what he might expect to pay for that sort of service?
Obviously, it depends on who you use. I mean, we can organise things like that and get someone to do it for them, but it does depend on who you use. I mean, I would say around less than 100 a month, but it can be a big garden, a big pool. It can be a small garden, a small pool. So we would make sure somebody gave them a good estimate and made sure that they were getting a good price for that.
Okay. And whilst we're celebrating the joys of owning a property in Portugal, Doris Henderson is bringing us down to earth with the question about making a will. As a Portuguese property owner, even if I'm still remaining a UK citizen, what do you recommend people do, Paula, when it comes to recognising their Portuguese assets in a will?
I recommend to do a separate will in Portugal. It's not mandatory, but I recommend to do a separate will in Portugal only to cover the existing assets in Portugal. Normally the property, the car, the bank accounts, the rental, any income that the person has in Portugal, only to cover that. Because when something happens, the probate process, if you have a will in Portugal, will be much simpler. If you don't have, we will need probate to be carried out in the UK. When it's completed, translated, get apostille, and then start the process in Portugal. So it can become a longer process and a more complicated process also.
So the general principle would be a Portuguese will to recognise Portuguese assets, and then a UK will for everything you have in the UK, and that makes things less complicated.
Correct, Andy. That's what I recommend.
Good, good. A question from Nicholas Alfieri. Wants to come back to submitting the tax return for rental income. Do you know what the tax rate is? Well, that would be on the personal circumstances, would it, Paula, or is there a fixed rate? Just explain some of that for us.
If this property is an investment property and is only for the purpose of renting out and getting profit from there, then the income will be the tax income will be 28%. But then there are several things that can be deducted, so it can end up much lower.
What sort of things would you be able to offset against that income?
You can the rates, you can the cleaning services, maintenance of the property. So those kinds of things, they can be offset against the rental income.
Short-term rent, it tends to be around about 8.75% that they actually end up paying. It's more if you're a long-term, if you're going to long-term rent, it is different. But as a short-term rent, it comes out about 8.75.
Okay, thank you, Angela. And we've got Darren Clark. He's looking, I think he's looking to rent at the moment. Which areas in the Algarve are cheaper for rental, would you say, Angela? I guess the minute you go away from the coast, then you get cheaper rental rates.
Yeah, much so, yeah. So you're always going to pay more when you're at the coast. Going inland into the countryside, obviously you're more with the Portuguese, so you can still get by without the language. But yeah, you're always going to get more. The east as well. The east is you pay less in the east than you would in the central and the west.
Okay, thank you. And Paola, an important subject area is community fees. And if you buy on a development, can you just explain some of that? It's not a concept that we have in the UK. We don't live generally on urbanizations or developments, but essentially you've got some communal areas and everybody pays their bit. Is that right?
Correct. If you live in a block of apartments, for example, the communal areas can be the terraces, the stairs, the elevators. These are communal areas and they need to be maintained. The roofs need to be maintained. So the block needs to be clean. Any damage that occurs needs to be covered. So people are owners of their apartment, but then they are also owners in commune and depending of the area of your property in a different share, and you will be considering the per millage of your property, you will be obliged to pay a fee, a monthly fee. It really depends, Andy, because in a block of apartments we could be speaking about 50 euros without a swimming pool. If you have a swimming pool, that's going to be increased. We would be looking about 70, 80 euros per month. When you need to do extra works to the property, like painting, for example, you have to pay a separate fee that will be added to your monthly obligation. If you live in a area, condominium area, which is a golf course and has other facilities, then you can be facing different figures, 500 euros per month, for example, to upkeep the development. All depends where the property is located.
But you'd find out about this ahead of part of your due diligence on the property as a lawyer. You'd be looking at the minutes from the community committee meetings and finding out what the payment levels and making sure the purchaser was comfortable with what they were getting into.
Yes, this is a very important thing that we do. We also go through the recent 4 or 5 years of meetings so that we know that it's a building that doesn't have any problems, that is an easy building to live in. And the owner of this fraction that's going to be sold does not have any problems with the rest of the condominium. We normally do a resume and translate to the clients for them to know what they are entering to. And for the last year or so on our deeds, we have expressed how much is the communal fee for the year and the coming year of that property. So the client knows exactly what will be the costs that he will incur on buying that property.
Thank you, Paola. And thank you, Angela. We're going to leave this on a cliffhanger because we have a question in from Bill O'Brien who asks, so how hard is it to get residency status in Portugal? Well, thank you for that, Bill, because in 5 minutes' time, we have another session starting on relocating to Portugal, making a permanent move, and the key considerations around that for you. So do come back in 5 minutes. Thank you again, both of you, Paula and Angela. Paula, I believe you're on the next session as well, so I shall see you shortly. Bye, Angela, and bye, everybody.